Vice-Admiral Sir Joshua Rowley, 1st Baronet, was the fourth son of Admiral Sir William Rowley. Sir Joshua was from an ancient English family, originating in Staffordshire, and was born on 1 May 1734 in Dublin. Rowley served with distinction in a number of battles throughout his career and was highly praised by his contemporaries. Unfortunately, whilst his career was often active, he did not have the opportunity to command any significant engagements and always followed rather than led. His achievements have therefore been eclipsed by his contemporaries such as Keppel, Hawke, Howe and Rodney. Rowley, however, remains one of the stalwart commanders of the wooden walls that kept Britain safe for so long. Early career in the Battle of Toulon. He entered the Navy and served on his father's flagship HMS Stirling Castle and served at the Battle of Toulon, a battle that was exceptionally controversial despite its inconclusive outcome and led Admiral Thomas Matthews and several of his captains to be dismissed from the Royal Navy. Admiral William Rowley then became Commander-in-Chief of the Mediterranean until 1748. Joshua Rowley remained with his father and was promoted to the rank of lieutenant on 2 July 1747. In 1752, Rowley's name appears once more, serving as lieutenant aboard the 44-gun fifth-rate frigate HMS Penzance. On 4 December 1753, he was promoted to post captain and given command of the 6th-rate HMS Rye of 24 guns. By March 1755, he had been appointed to HMS Ambuscade, a 5th-rate 40-gun frigate that had been captured from the French during the War of the Austrian Succession in 1746. In Ambuscade he was attached to a squadron under Admiral Edward Hawke in the Bay of Biscay. During the short period, Hawke's squadron captured over 300 enemy merchantmen. By the time Hawke had replaced the unfortunate Admiral John Byng at Minorca in 1756, Rowley had been moved to the 50-gun HMS Hampshire. Battle of Cartagena. By October 1757, Rowley had been given the task of commissioning the 60-gun 4th-rate HMS Montague. Once launched, she joined Admiral Henry Osborne's fleet of 14 ships of the line in the Mediterranean. Osborne was at the time blockading the French under Admiral Leclerc in the Spanish city of Cartagena, preventing them from joining the fleet off Louisbourg in Nova Scotia. French command had ordered the Marquis Duquesne to break through the British blockade and reinforce Leclerc, and then, with superiority of numbers, break out of Cartagena and make the way to America. Osborne intercepted Duquesne and his 3 ships of the line and 1 frigate. The subsequent action became known as the Battle of Cartagena and took place on 28 February 1758. Osborne's squadron captured 2 of the French line of battleships and, under the guns of the Spanish castle, the 60-gun French Oriflamme was driven on shore by the Montague and the Monet. Whilst the battle was not particularly grand, the annihilation of the forces under Duquesne had 2 distinct effects. Firstly, the battle restored much of the pride that had been sapped from the Navy after several defeats, including those at Toulon and Minorca. Secondly, the siege of Louisbourg and its surrender led to the French being marginalized as a significant power in North America. The battle can therefore be considered by the British as one of the defining achievements of the 7 Years' War. Had Leclerc managed to break out from Osborne's close blockade, the modern map of North America might appear quite differently. Battle of St. Gast. Rowley joined Admiral Anson's fleet in the Channel in 1758 and took part in the fateful expeditions along the coast of France. The expedition, which took place throughout early September 1758, was a massive undertaking. Britain's naval forces were under the command of Admiral Lord Anson, seconded by Commodore Howe. Britain's land forces were commanded by Lieutenant General Admiral Thomas Bligh. These included 22 ships of the line with 9 frigates and Commodore House 1 third-rate, 4 fourth-rate, 10 frigates, 5 sloops, 2 fire ships, 2 bomb-ketchers, 100 transports, 20 tenders, 10 storeships and 10 cutters. The land forces consisted of 4 infantry brigades and a few hundred light dragoon cavalry, totaling over 10,000 soldiers. Initially, the expedition met with considerable success, capturing the port of Cherbourg. The British destroyed the port, the docks and the ships harboured there, carrying off or destroying considerable war material and goods. French troops from neighbouring towns and villages began moving on Cherbourg, and the British expedition re-embarked to move against St. Malo on 5 September, but it was found to be too well defended. The weather now turned against the British as well, and it was decided it would be safer to re-embark the land forces further west in the Bay of St. Cast near the small village of St. Cast. The fleet sailed ahead while the army marched overland on the 7th of September, engaging in skirmishes on the 7th, 8th and 9th. On the 10th of September, the Coldstream Guards were sent ahead to St. Cast to collect provisions and convoy them back to the army. Lieutenant General Bligh with the army camped in Matigny on some 3 miles from St. Cast. During this time, Richelieu, military commander of Brittany, had gathered some 12 infantry battalions. In addition to these forces, the French army, amounting to 8,000 to 9,000 men, under the field command of Marquis d'Orbignac, were fast marching on St. Cast from Brest. Bligh broke camp by 3 a.m. on the morning of the 11th of September and reached the beach at St. Cast before 9 a.m., but the embarkation went very slowly. Hardly any soldiers had embarked when the French appeared and began a cannonade of the beach. A great deal of confusion followed, and as panic set in among the British, the French forces moved down a covered way to the beach and deployed 3 brigades into line with a 4th in reserve. The 5 frigates and the bomb-ketches tried to cover the British retreat, and the fire disordered and drove back the French line for a while. The French artillery batteries, however, were well positioned on higher ground and drove off the frigates and sank 3 landing boats full of soldiers, and other landing boats were destroyed on the beach. The rearguard attempted a counter-attack, during which the Grenadier Guards broke and routed. According to Fortescue, of the 1,400 men that remained in the rearguard, 750 officers and men were killed and wounded. The rest of the rearguard were taken prisoner. Captain Rowley was wounded and was left on the beach. Along with Captains Mapleston, Paston, and Elphinstone, he was taken prisoner on the beach. With the huge loss of life and military equipment, the battle ended British hopes of an invasion of Brittany during the 7 Years' War. The battle was an embarrassment for both the British Army and Navy. Battle of Quiberon Bay. By late October 1759, Rowley had been exchanged by the French for their own prisoners who were held by the British, and was once more in command of the Montague. He was again assigned to Admiral Hawke's squadron and was with the fleet with Hawke off Brest and in the Battle of Quiberon Bay. The French had designed to invade Scotland and had been ordered to break through the blockading British ships and collect transports for the invasion. On the 20th of November, 23 ships of Hawke's squadron that had been sheltering from the seasonal gales in Torbay caught up with and attacked 21 ships of the line under Admiral Conflans in Quiberon Bay. The bay itself is infamous due to its clustered and hidden shoals and variable wind and weather. The battle was fought directly through the dangerous shoals, and the British lost 2 ships wrecked on the shoals and the French lost 6, with another successfully captured. The battle has been described by several later historians as the Trafalgar of the 7 Years' War. The risks of taking such a large fleet into the dangerous shoals of the bay with the Atlantic gales beating down upon them separated Hawke from many of his contemporaries and showed not only his daring genius but the confidence that he inspired in his subordinates. The French were equally impressed at the daring and audacity of the British naval commanders, and it took a great many years for them to recover West Indies and convoy duty. In 1760 he went out with Commodore Sir James Douglas to the West Indies, where he took part in the expedition against Dominica that landed General Rollo and forced the island into capitulation on the 7th of June after 1 day of fighting. In November 1760 Rowley moved into the third-rate 74-gun HMS Superb. He accompanied an East India Company convoy in that year and returned to England. In 1762, with 2 frigates, HMS Gosport, under a young Captain John Jervis, and HMS Danae, in company, he took another convoy of East and West Indian trade to the westward, and successfully protected it from the squadron of Commodore de Turney. So highly, however, was his conduct approved by the East India Company, and by the London West India merchants, that they presented him with a handsome silver epergne and dish. After several years on the beach, in October 1776 he was appointed to the 74-gun HMS Monarch, in which at the beginning of 1778 he convoyed some transports to Gibraltar. Battle of Ushant. On his return to England he was attached to the fleet under Admiral Keppel, whom he had last seen leading the van at the Battle of Quiberon Bay in HMS Torbay. It was with Keppel on the 27th of July 1778 that Rowley led the van at the First Battle of Ushant. Monarch had 2 killed and 9 wounded. Once more Rowley was involved in a battle that ended ambiguously and yet caused great upheaval and political and naval ramifications. As a consequence of the battle, Keppel resigned his command after a court-martial acquitted him, and Admiral Hugh Palliser was also court-martial, and was heavily criticised, leading to his resignation as a Member of Parliament. Battles of Granada and Amp-Gordaloo. At the end of 1778 Rowley moved into the 74-gun HMS Suffolk and was sent to the West Indies with a Commodore's Broad-Pennant in command of a squadron of 7 ships, as a reinforcement to Admiral John Byron, whom he joined at St. Lucia in February 1779. On the 19th of March he was promoted to Rear Admiral of the Blue. On the 6th of July 1779 Rowley once more led the van division against Admiral D'Estaing. The battle was a draw and did little to change the course of the war that was already moving into its closing stages. Later that year Rowley captured 2 French frigates and a sloop of war. They were La Fortunaire, La Blanche, and L'Elise. Rowley also led his squadron to capture of a large French convoy from Marseille off Martinique. Rodney and the Battle of Martinique, when Admiral Sir George Rodney arrived from England to command a station. Rowley shifted his flag to the 74-gun HMS Conqueror, in which ship he commanded the rear division in the action off Martinique on the 17th of April against the Comte de Guichen and the van in the 2 further stalemate engagements of the 15th and the 19th of May. The 3 battles were inconclusive, and when the hurricane season arrived de Guichen returned to Europe, and Rodney sent Rowley to Jamaica with 10 ships of the line to reinforce Sir Peter Parker, as there was an imminent threat to the colony from the Spanish Commander-in-Chief Jamaica. In 1782 Rowley succeeded to the command of the Jamaica station, a post which he held until the end of the American War of Independence. Rowley had proved throughout his career that he was both brave and a very capable officer, and yet the successes of other commanders of the Jamaica station had set an extraordinary precedent that he could not match in his brief time there. He was also instrumental in corresponding with Henry Christophe of Haiti for the reason of attempting to bring peace to the Kingdom of Haiti. Rowley later returned to England in 1783 and was not appointed to another command. On the 10th of June 1786 he was honoured with it. He was promoted on the 24th of September 1787 to the rank of Vice-Admiral of the White. He died at his home, Tendring Hall in Suffolk, on the 26th of February 1790. Family. Rowley was married in 1759 to Sarah Burton, daughter of Bartholomew Burton, Governor of the Bank of England, and despite his active service the two had a large family. Sarah Rowley, Arabella Rowley, Sir William Rowley, 2nd Baronet, Member of Parliament for Suffolk 1812–1830, High Sheriff of Suffolk in 1791. Philadelphia Rowley, married Admiral Sir Charles Cotton, Admiral Bartholomew Samuel Rowley, who also served as Commander-in-Chief of the Jamaica Station. Reverend Joshua Rowley, Admiral Sir Charles Rowley. Citations